Reading through the Bible in 1 year, June 25th, Deuteronomy chapter 30, Psalms 119, 73 through 96, Isaiah 57, and Matthew chapter 5. Restoration promised. So it shall be when all of these things have come upon you, the blessing and the curse. Again, God is telling them ahead of time, before it ever happens, that they will endure this curse, which I have set before you. And you call them to mind in all the nations where the Lord your God has banished you. And you return to the Lord your God, and obey him with all your heart and soul, according to all that I command you today, you and your sons. Then the Lord your God will restore you from captivity, and will have compassion on you, and will gather you again from the peoples where the Lord your God has scattered you. If your outcasts are at the ends of the earth, from there the Lord your God will gather you, and from there he will bring you back. And the Lord your God will bring you back into the land which your fathers possessed, and you shall possess it. And lost my mouse. There we go. And he will prosper you and multiply you more than your fathers. Moreover, the Lord your God will circumcise your heart and the heart of your descendants to love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul, so that you may live. The Lord your God will inflict all these curses on your enemies and on those who hate you, who persecuted you. You shall again obey the Lord and observe all his commandments, which I command you today. Then the Lord your God will prosper you abundantly in all the work of your hand, in the offspring of your body, in the offspring of your cattle, and in the produce of your ground. For the Lord will again rejoice over you for good, just as he rejoiced over your fathers. If you obey the Lord your God to keep his commandments and his statutes, which are written in this book of the law, if you turn to the Lord your God with all your heart and soul. For this commandment, which I command you today, is not too difficult for you, nor is it out of reach. It is not in heaven, that you should say, well, who will go up to heaven for us, to get it for us and make us hear it, that we may observe it? Nor is it beyond the sea, that you should say, well, who will cross the sea for us to get it for us and make us hear it, that we may observe it? But the word is very near you, in your mouth and in your heart, that you may observe it. See, I have set before you today life and prosperity, and death and adversity. In that I command you today to love the Lord your God, to walk in his ways, and to keep his commandments and his statutes and his judgments, that you may live and multiply, and that the Lord your God may bless you in the land where you are entering to possess it. But if your heart turns away and you will not obey, I'm bringing up the notes here. There's quite a big chunk of notes. But if your heart turns away and you will not obey, but are drawn away and worship other gods and serve them, I declare to you today that you shall surely perish. You will not prolong your days in the land where you are crossing the Jordan to enter and to possess it. I call heaven and earth to witness against you today, that I have set before you life and death, the blessing and the curse. So choose life, in order that you may live, you and your descendants, by loving the Lord your God and by obeying his voice and holding fast to him. For this is your life and the length of your days, that you may live in the land which the Lord swore to your fathers, to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, to give to them. All right, and that's all the notes for there. Let's go on to Psalm 119, 73 through 90-something. It blipped past. Through 96. There we go. I have another set of notes and whatever. It was a thing. Yod. Your hands made me and fashioned me. Give me understanding that I may learn your commandments. May those who fear you see me and be glad, because I wait for your word. I know, O Lord, that your judgments are righteous, and that in faithfulness you have afflicted me. God afflicts us. He puts us through adversity because he is faithful to us. Oh, may your loving kindness comfort me, according to your word to your servant. May your compassion come to me that I may live, for your law is my delight. May the arrogant be ashamed, for they subvert me with a lie. But I shall meditate on your precepts. May those who fear you turn to me, even those who know your testimonies. May my heart be blameless in your statutes, so that I will not be ashamed. My soul languishes for your salvation. I wait for your word. My eyes fail with longing for your word, while I say, when will you comfort me? Oh, sorry, this is in Kaf. Though I become like a wineskin in the smoke, I do not forget your statutes. How many are the days of your servant? When will you execute judgment on those who persecute me? The arrogant have dug pits for me, men who are not in accord with your law. All your commandments are faithful. They have persecuted me with a lie. Help me. They almost destroyed me on earth. But as for me, I did not forsake your precepts. Revive me according to your loving kindness, so that I may keep the testimony of your mouth. Lamd. Forever, O Lord, your word is settled in heaven. Your faithfulness continues throughout all generations. You establish the earth, and it stands. They stand this day according to your ordinances, for all things are your servants. If your law had not been my delight, then I would have perished in my affliction. I will never forget your precepts, for by them you have revived me. I am yours, save me, for I have sought your precepts. The wicked wait for me to destroy me. I shall diligently consider your testimonies. So he knows that people are actively trying to attack him, actively trying to find fault in what he's doing and ruin his reputation, and in some cases even kill him. But he's not worrying about that. His focus is on serving God. I've seen a limit to all perfection. Your commandment is exceedingly broad. And that's it for there. Let's go on to Isaiah 57. The righteous man perishes, and no man takes it to heart. And devout men are taken away, well, no one understands. For the righteous man is taken away from evil. He enters into peace. They rest in their beds, each one who walked in his upright way. But come here, you sons of a sorceress, offspring of an adulterer and a prostitute. Against whom do you jest? Against whom do you open wide your mouth and stick out your tongue? These are mocking things they do. Are you not children of rebellion, offspring of deceit, who inflame yourselves among the oaks? Who under every luxuriant tree, who slaughter the children in the ravines under the clefts of the crags. These are pagan worship. What's a good way to put this? These are pagan worship practices. So under all of these, like they would find these giant oak trees and they would have orgies underneath them. And they would find, that's the inflame yourselves among the oaks. And they would also slaughter the children, burn them alive, in order so that they would get freedom from whatever it is that they want. In the same way that people today sacrifice their children through abortion to make sure that they can win golden statues. It's all idolatry. Among the smooth stones of the ravine is your portion. They are your lot. Even to them you have poured out a drink offering. You have made a grain offering. Shall I relent concerning these things? Upon a high and lofty mountain you have made your bed. You also went up there to offer sacrifice. Behind the door and the doorpost you have set up your sign. Indeed, far removed from me, you have uncovered yourself and have gone up and made your bed wide. Literally saying that they're whoring themselves out. And you have made an agreement for yourself with them. You have loved their bed. You have looked on their manhood. You have journeyed to the king with oil and increased your perfumes. And you have sent envoys a great distance and made them go down to Sheol. You were tired out by the length of your road, yet you did not say, it is hopeless. You found renewed strength. Therefore you did not faint. Of whom were you worried and fearful when you lied and did not remember me, nor give me a thought? Was I not silent even for a long time, so you do not fear me? I will declare your righteousness and your deeds, but they will not profit you. When you cry out, let your collection of idols deliver you. God is saying, you know what? You want to worship these things? You want to have them deliver you? Fine. Let them save you from what I'm sending upon you. But the wind will carry all of them up, and a breath will take them away. But he who takes refuge in me will inherit the land, and will possess my holy mountain. And it will be said, build up, prepare the way, remove every obstacle out of the way of my people. For thus says the high and exalted one, who lives forever and ever, and whose name is holy. I dwell on a high and holy place, and also with the contrite and lowly of spirit, not the people who are boasting about who they are or how great they are or what wonderful things they've accomplished. In order to revive the spirit of the lowly and to revive the heart of the contrite. For I will not contend forever, nor will I always be angry. For the spirit would grow faint before me, as the breath of those whom I have made. Because of the iniquity of his unjust gain, I was angry and struck him. And I hid my face and was angry. Basically, the hiding his face means that he turned himself away so that he wouldn't listen to their pleas. And he went on turning away in the way of his heart. I have seen his ways, but I will heal him. I will lead him and restore comfort to him and to his mourners, creating the praise of his lips. Peace, peace to him who is far, and to him who is near, says the Lord, and I will heal him. But the wicked are like the tossing sea, for it cannot be quiet, and its waters toss up refuse and mud. There is no peace, says my God, for the wicked. And that's all the notes. Let's go on to Matthew chapter 5. So, you might be thinking, look at this. We're at the last chapter. It's only 13 minutes in. That's not too shabby. If you haven't done this with me before, welcome to this Sermon on the Mount. We're going to go into some of this in detail because it's really ridiculously good. I love it to death. We're going to go into some intense detail on this. That's my only warning for you. But it's really good to go through. I'm not going to break off into a bunch of tangents. We're just going to go through the line, or go through the text. If you have any more questions or thoughts on this, you can go through and look at any of the previous videos where I've gone over the same sections of text. I did it both in ESV twice, and I've done it in NASB. This is my second time going through the NAS version. The Sermon on the Mount, the Beatitudes. I'm going to scroll up here so you can see the notes. When Jesus saw the crowds, he went up on the mountain, and after he sat down, his disciples came to him. So he opened his mouth and began to teach them, saying, now this is Jesus as the speaker, speaking to whom? The crowd at the Sermon on the Mount. But he's speaking specifically to his disciples, Because if not, then why would they even mention the fact his disciples came to him and then he started speaking? Blessed, which means, oh, how happy, are the poor in spirit. Not the ones who are happy about everything that they have. These are the ones who, in their hearts, are broken. For theirs is the kingdom of heaven. This is Jesus taking the entire worldly system and flipping it on its head. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the gentle, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for themselves, for their own glory, no, for righteousness from God, for they shall be satisfied. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall receive mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. Because our God is a God of peace. Blessed are those who have been persecuted for the sake of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. And now this is very directly focused at his disciples. Blessed are you when people insult you and persecute you and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me, because of the testimony of Jesus Christ. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward in heaven is great. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. And they will be persecuted. If you want more detail on this, read Fox's Book of the Martyrs to learn what happened to each of the apostles. Now again, he's speaking directly to his disciples. This is clear in the way that he's saying this. He's not speaking to all of the myriad people who showed up. He's talking to his disciples. And he's saying, you are the salt of the earth. But if the salt has become tasteless, again, which is what they would have had at that time, not the same salt that we have today. The salt we have today is refined salt. It tastes salty and it melts away so that there's nothing left. There's only the salt. But then they would have a very weak kind of salt. And once the salt itself leaches out the saltiness of it, and you're left with a stone. If that salt has become tasteless, if it's just a stone, how can it be made salty again? You can't. It's no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot by men. People go, this is teaching that you can lose your salvation. Aha. Your saltiness is your salvation. No, let's read it. So the primary value of salt is not as a flavoring, but as a preservative. Disciples are to hinder the world's corruption, to preserve the truth of Christ. The salt deposits along the Dead Sea contain not just sodium chloride, which is what salt is, but a variety of other minerals as well. The salt can become useless when the rain washes out its saltiness over the years. Likewise, Christians whose value and conduct do not remain distinct from the culture around them fail in their mission. Does this mean that they're no longer Christians? No. But it also means that you can abandon or even destroy your testimony before others through your actions. If you are a Christian, if you are a solid Christian, if you are a converted Christian, and if you spend all your time at the strip club, what does that say about the Christ whom you serve? Or if you are a Christian and you cheat on your wife, we've seen this happen to countless pastors. They're in a position of authority, and they, like all men, have to be careful. Most pastors I know won't meet with a woman just one-on-one. They will meet with her only with their wife present, or if they're not married, they'll have someone else physically there, and they will refuse to meet with them in that kind of a sense. Sorry, in that kind of a environment. Why? Because they're weak? Yeah. Because they're weak. Because they understand their depth of the depth of the depravity within them. They know that if left to themselves, their sexual desires would just take over. And they know this, so they prepare ahead of time. So this is why a lot of pastors, even pastors at churches that we've attended, have fallen into grievous sin. Some of which refusing to give up their control over the church that they're in when they're found to be in these adulterous relationships. What does it do to that ministry? It destroys it. Utterly destroys it. Like a bomb in a vegetable garden, everything just explodes and it's worthless at that point. That person's ministry will always be tainted by their adultery. Their witness is destroyed. So that's what it means when the salt has become tasteless. Not that you're losing your salvation. Those people could really, truly be saved. God could have allowed them to go through this horrible thing so that they could be better prepped to help others. And also God could have allowed them to go through this horrible thing so that God could be seen as the one who is glorified through their restoration. But they will not serve as a pastor again. He continues speaking to his disciples. You are the light of the world. He's warning them ahead of time. You are the salt of the earth, so be careful about your testimony to others. You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. He continually shows the difference between darkness and light, referencing himself and the holiness of God as that which is light, and everything else is the kingdom of darkness, which tries to hide itself. You see this in the beginning of Romans chapter 1. Nor does anyone light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a lampstand, and gives light to all who are in the house. So let your light shine before men in such a way that they may see your good works and glorify your Father who is in heaven, not you. And don't trust in your works thinking, my works, these are the things that are proving that I'm a Christian. Or, my works, these are the things that are keeping me saved. No. You can only do these good works because of the God who has changed you to allow you to do them. Do not think that I came to abolish the law or the prophets. I did not come to abolish, but to fulfill. For truly I say to you that until heaven and earth pass away, not the smallest letter or stroke shall pass from the law until that all is accomplished. And who's accomplishing it? Jesus the Christ. He's fulfilling the law right now. Whoever then annuls one of the least of these commandments. If you can find one of the commandments of God and it's the smallest one you think, just goes, it's not that big of a deal. This is something that the Pharisees and the lawyers at the time, again, lawyer not meaning the same thing we think of as a lawyer, it's somebody who's an expert in the law, would tell the people, so you've heard that, don't worry about it so much. Don't worry about these things. That's what they were telling them. Here is Jesus warning them ahead of time, saying, buckle up, this is about to get real. Anybody who annuls one of the least of these commandments and teaches others to do the same shall be called the least in the kingdom of heaven. But whoever keeps them and teaches them, he shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. He's speaking about the people who are their teachers. The famous pastors of their day, the famous priests, who all of them know have kind of shaved off the corners of the Ten Commandments to make it palatable for people, so they could think they could keep it on their own. For I say to you that unless your righteousness surpasses that of the scribes and Pharisees, you will not enter the kingdom of heaven. This has to be terrifying to them. Absolutely terrifying. And they're not wrong to be terrified by it. He's basically saying God will reject you unless you are perfect. Is this any different today? No. God still holds us to the same standard. Unless we are perfect as our Father in heaven is perfect, we can't enter into his heaven. And that's the point being made. So, as he says, he didn't come to abolish the law or the prophets, but to fulfill them. And he already warned them, saying, the people who have told you before that these are doable, that you can figure out how to do it on your own, they've bastardized it. They, like the salt we talked about before, have washed the saltiness of it out, and now it's worthless. Allow me to saltify this for you. Allow me to put it back in its original true context. Now, a thing to note here. At this time, nobody would speak on their own authority. They would say, Rabbi so-and-so has said, or this person in the past has said. They wouldn't speak on their own authority to avoid being blamed for something or getting something wrong. But here, Jesus is doing what? He's speaking with authority, something that their own religious leaders are wont to do. So what does he have to say to them? You have heard that the ancients were told, or you have heard it said of old, you shall not commit murder, and whoever commits murder will be liable to the court. Right? Now you note it says murder. It doesn't say kill. You're allowed to legally kill, but you're not allowed to commit murder, which implies malice in your heart. But I say to you that everyone who is angry with his brother shall be guilty before the court. And whoever says to his brother, Raka, you good for nothing, shall be guilty before the Supreme Court. And whoever says, you fool, will be guilty enough to go into the fiery hell. That is God's standard. Again, they had people who were cutting off the corners, making these things palatable. They made it say, oh, so as long as you don't like physically go up and murder somebody, then you're perfectly fine. God won't care just as long as you don't murder people. You're not a serial killer, right? Okay, yeah, cool. Then God's good with you. No. God's saying that even the thoughts of your mouth, that the thoughts of your heart that are manifested through your mouth that come out, these things are as if you have really committed that murder. Why? Because the other person you're saying this to is a representative of God. He, just like you, was created in the image of God. And as image bearer, he has rights that are afforded to him. Therefore, if you are presenting your offering at the altar, and there remember that your brother has something against you, you have someone that you know who has something against you, that they have a problem with you. Stop, drop everything. Leave your offering there before the altar and go. And first be reconciled with your brother and then come and present your offering. Make friends quickly, with your opponent at law while you are with him on the way, so that your opponent may not hand you over to the judge and the judge to the officer and you be thrown into prison. Truly, I say to you, you will not come out until you have paid every last cent. Okay, so that was kind of hard, right? That was a hard saying for them to hear. That even the thoughts in your mind can make you guilty of murder when you say them out loud. Well, that's pretty bad, right? Whew. That's a bit much, Jesus. Can you dial it back a little? Jesus says no. You have heard that it was said, you shall not commit adultery. And every guy there goes, I have not slept around with my wife. No problem here. I am fine. I have this covered. The priest told me that it's perfectly fine as long as I don't actually go and sleep with my neighbor's wife. We're perfectly fine here. But Jesus continues, I say to you that everyone who looks at a woman with lust for her in his heart has already committed adultery with her in his heart. This is getting real. He literally just said the thoughts that you have in the playground of your mind, where you think nobody can get in, those thoughts are as if you have actually committed the acts. Do you look at pornography? When there's a woman walking down the street, do you think in the back of your head, that would be fun? Or if you're a woman, do you think the same thing of a guy who goes walking by? So far, he's proven that you've committed at least 2 of his 10 commandments, and that you stand judged before him, before the righteous judge, before the creator of all. He goes into more detail, because of course he does. He's God. If your right eye causes you to stumble, tear it out and throw it from you. For it is better for you to lose one of the parts of your body than for your whole body to be thrown into hell. And in that standard Jewish method of stating something in one way and then stating it another way to reiterate how important it is, if your right hand causes you to stumble, cut it off and throw it from you. For it is better for you to lose one of the parts of your body than for your whole body to go into hell. This is most certainly true, and he's driving the point home. And he keeps going on. But it was said, whoever sends his wife away, let him give her a certificate of divorce. But I say to you that everyone who divorces his wife, except for the reason of unchastity, adultery, makes her commit adultery. And whoever marries a divorced woman commits adultery. You're like, what? But they're divorced. Marriage is a 3-legged stool. That's the way it's always been. If you decide that you are going to leave the relationship for whatever reason, doesn't matter. You violated your commandment with her, and you're sitting there, all 3 of you, right? And you decide, no, I'm good. I'm done with this. And you decide to leave. You may have severed your connection with your wife, but you're still connected to God. He hasn't agreed to this. He hasn't annulled this relationship just because you found someone who's hotter, just because you fell out of love. Well, that's what happens in marriage. Marriage isn't about being, truly, madly, deeply in love the whole time when it's just puppy love. Love itself is much more deeper than just physical attraction. It's much deeper than romance. True love is where you support each other no matter what happens. True love is where you're there for them all the time. True love is when you can open your heart to someone and truly share your real desires and your real fears and your real struggles. True love is when they get sick, they get injured, or anything else is happening to them. You don't run away. You own up to your responsibility. You continue to take care of them and to support them through whatever it is they're going through. That's true love. So just because you decide that you found someone else that's prettier or someone else that's hunkier, you want to go after them, doesn't mean that your civil break of that marriage has done anything. So what happens is when you decide to run off, you're still married to that person. So you're going to go and commit adultery with someone else in God's eyes. And more than that, your wife, who you abandoned, or your husband, whom you abandoned to go pursue whatever you want, when they go find someone else to support them, now they're committing adultery because they're still, in God's eyes, married to you. And that falls on you. It doesn't fall on them. Again, you have heard that the ancients were told, or you have heard it said of old, you shall not make vows, but shall fulfill your vows to the Lord. But I say to you, make no oath at all, either by heaven, for it is the throne of God, or by the earth, for it is the footstool of his feet, or by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king. Nor shall you make an oath by your head, for you cannot make one hair white or black. But let your statement be yes, yes, or no, no. Anything beyond these is of evil. You have heard that it was said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I say to you, do not resist an evil person, but whoever slaps you on the right cheek, turn to him the other also. Now this is being slapped. This is not actually physically being beaten by somebody. We can go into detail on this, but we're already at 36 minutes. There's a lot you can read on this, and it kind of goes into more detail to explain it. I'm going to pull up the rest of the notes here to get to where we were. There we go. If anyone wants to sue you and take your shirt, let him have your coat also. Whoever forces you to go 1 mile, go with him 2. You have heard that it was said, give to him who asks of you, and do not turn away from him who wants to borrow from you. You have heard that it was said, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say to you, love your enemies. Pray for those who persecute you, so that you may be sons of your Father who is in heaven, for he causes his sun to rise on the evil and on the good. And he causes his rain to fall on the righteous and the unrighteous. So you too help everybody, even those who hate you. If you love those who love you, what good is that? What reward do you have? Do not even the tax collectors do the same? If you only greet your brothers, what are you doing more than others? Do not even the Gentiles do the same? Now, this is the hardest statement, I think, in all of Scripture. Therefore, you are to be perfect. Perfect. As your heavenly Father is perfect. Let's read the note on this one. Scripture is a reflection of God himself, as he has made his will in character known to his people. As Christians seek to live in conformity to Scripture, they are in fact pursuing the very perfection of God. This verse provides the conclusion and summary to this antithesis section we just went through, showing that all of the law and the prophets find their perfect fulfillment in their perfection of the Father, which is what Jesus' disciples are called to pursue. And if you are a Christian, you too are a disciple of Jesus. So go and be perfect. Behold the word of the Lord.